Ziad, thank you very, very much for joining me on this deep dive Data Chat podcast. I know we've
Thank you very
spoken
much,
about
Tony.
it I know we've spoken about it for 2-3 weeks now. And I love the view
Thank
behind
you.
you. This is real, right?
This is the Mediterranean.
Love it. Yeah. Like it very much.
Thank you.
So
we're so much into the virtual world that it's nice to have a real background.
Exactly.
Yeah, we sit indoors so much that it's nice to have an office where you can look out and extend your eyesight.
Relax when you need to, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So for us, for me, and for other people, can you tell us a little bit about yourself before we dive deep a little bit?
Yeah, my name is Ziad Nassar, and I've now been 30 years into the digital world. I started my career when I was in college, actually, 1995. We launched a web development company, and at the time we called it an advertising company. So you could say it was sort of a digital agency, and we had no idea what we were doing. There weren't really any references. We had a friend that knew how to do web development. We're like, great. And so we went out and started talking to different businesses and so on. It was really an amazing journey. And it was, and now that I've been in the field a while, you sort of see these patterns, and you see new emerging technologies like AI. But back then, when we were actually approaching different companies, a lot of people were like, oh, the internet is just a phase. It's just a fad. Now, it might be, when you look back in history, like, okay, the internet was just a fad. Maybe it's a 30-year fad, a 50-year fad, like the automobile. Maybe the automobile is a fad. If you look back in history, 1,000 years, maybe it's only a 200-year fad. So we went from web development to actually e-commerce development, and we developed our own e-commerce platform. Web development started getting more and more complex. Hey, the client needs to be able to update their content. Let's build an interface. So we created an e-commerce platform, very much like Shopify, and that was between 1997 and 2001. It was quite a journey, and you see that there was a lot of hype, and a lot of people just weren't ready for the internet. It was something very new. And we had, I was in California at the time. I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area. Our company was in Southern California. And so you see a lot of these big companies started coming in, or big money started coming in sort of in 1997, 1998. Microsoft bought Hotmail. It was actually a huge deal, a company that started only a few years before, and Microsoft comes in and pays $400 million or something like that. And people are like, what? For free? A company with no real revenue, or what people thought, there wasn't any real revenue behind Hotmail, but it was all ad-driven revenue. The reality is it's probably one of the fastest growing companies as far as user acquisition, because it was a free email account, and they had maybe 100 million or 200 million or something like that number of users. So when the big guys started coming in, everyone else started taking notice. Oh man, now AT&T is spending $100 million. So the smaller companies are like, okay, let's, it's plastered all over the financial stations and the news stations, and people started spending more attention. But at the same time, you also had a lot of startups, a lot of money poured into the .com era. Eventually there was a bubble that formed, and it popped. Because things were expensive. You had to hire developers. They were requiring premium because, very few people knew had those skills. And so, you go up, let's say you expand with the bubble, and when the bubble pops, all of a sudden people start shifting. They go into different businesses, but I end up sticking with it, and opened another development company where we focused on lead generation primarily. And then we built several other platforms, a video platform, a charity platform. We built some interesting things. So that's my experience. And then about a little less than 15 years ago, we launched a digital agency in the Middle East with clients across the Middle East, North Africa, and sort of helping businesses in this region get online. And when you go from web to social media. So the hot thing when we started was Facebook. And so, a lot of people, hey, I need a Facebook app, or I need to be on Facebook. They didn't know why, but they needed to be on Facebook. I found it interesting, after being in the industry at that time for 15 years, that a lot of people are telling me, I think social media or digital media is the future. Okay. And I still heard that up until about maybe 5 or 6 years ago. I think I should start investing in social media or digital media. And the reality is that, there is a lot of cost cutting, but there's a lot of tracking. So with digital media, you're able to track exposure, you're able to track, clicks, conversions. So eventually you start running performance campaigns that really sees digital media or marketing as an investment, as opposed to just, hey, we threw some magazine ads, we don't really know our return. So it's really evolved. And, now we're seeing AI taking shape. I mean, AI has been around for decades. And now with the internet, there's so much more information that is being trained on. The processing power is becoming more powerful. So these large language models started emerging, and people are starting, and they're open source, and they're starting to take advantage of it. And really, that massive spark came when OpenAI launched their version 3. And people really saw the potential of AI, as opposed to AI just running in the background and you're not really realizing it. I met a very interesting person the other day. He was telling me also he's been in the industry for a very long time, Harvard graduate, a software engineer. And in 2000, he pitched a ad serving platform to different companies like Yahoo, and they turned him down. And his ad serving platform had AI running in the back, and they were able to hit like a 93 or 94% accuracy when serving relevant ads. I'm like, wow, you're as old as I am. And the thing is, people they didn't digest it then. It was, maybe it was mainly the timing and the understanding of what it can do and what the potential is. A lot of people, like I mentioned, Facebook. I need to be on Facebook. Okay. I need a website. Okay. But why? And a lot of people just cannot answer the reason why. But with AI and the emergence of a lot of these new technologies, now there's a more tangible aspect to the entering the why, because they can see it, it can create an email that maybe they need half an hour to write. They can create it in 5 minutes. So right away, they're seeing the benefits. You launch a website, you don't really see a benefits. You just spent a couple of weeks or months building the website, but it takes you time to see the benefits.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So with your wisdom, the wisdom that you've acquired pre-bubble up to today, and it is obvious that you've stayed in tech, you pivoted several times, you're still alive and prosperous. So there is something that you're doing is right from an outside observer. And so the question for you is today, and you alluded to AI, what's your latest? Because as I'm listening, I'm saying I want to tag along with whatever Ziad is doing because, from the history, right?
Yeah.
And the approach that you took. So what's keeping you today excited, busy?
Yeah, I mean, the industry is very exciting because it's very evolving, whether it's ad tech or, it's a very fast-paced industry, web development. So what's exciting is that I guess you can call myself a bit of a futurist, but I mean, I'm excited about the future. Now it's very daunting, and we've done a lot of things right. But when you're around as long as we have been, you've also done a lot of things wrong. But you can see things emerge. You see these patterns, like we saw in the dot-com era, like we saw in the 2000s. There's a pattern, and you can see it. So when we did our first project, maybe 5 years ago with AI, we did sentiment analysis way before OpenAI. We did a project where 5 years ago it took us a few months, and today it would take you maybe a few hours or a couple of weeks. And so you can see the potential, the power when you're talking about development, we're talking about sentiment analysis. And when we looked 2.5 years ago, we did a deep dive into all the different tools that are out there and the potential, and where is this industry actually going? And so what we found that we found there are several pain points, and with all these platforms and cool tools, we started signing up for all these different platforms. And there's a Gartner study or statistics that says the average company has 185 tools. It's getting overwhelming. It's just getting wild. And what happened now with artificial intelligence and the power and the new tools is we're adding on top of that. I need an agent that does this. I need an agent that does that. I need an agent that generates an image, one that edits my podcast. So you have all these tools that do all these different things, but now we've added more to our arsenal of tools. So, when you set out to build an AI agent, you end up with the first thing you have to do is you have to tell the AI agent what you need. Okay. I am a brand, I have running shoes. We are promoting, let's say, action, of getting up in the morning or whatever it is. What happens is you have to do that with every different tool that you use and every different model that you use. So we said, the first problem is, with a lot of agencies, and sometimes with ourselves and other agents, we interviewed over 50 different digital agencies, is that our content is still spread across different channels, is still spread across different servers. The designer has something, the account manager has something else. So the first step in really building any AI strategy is to centralize some of your data. So we started with centralizing our brand assets, our logo, our mission, our vision. And the point of that is, when you want to build an AI agent, you have to tap into what the brand is. What is the brand all about?
Can I interrupt you here?
Yeah.
Can you tell us your definition of an AI agent so that we can follow through?
Okay, that's a good question. I always talk about AI agents because I hear the word 1,000 times a day. And also, somebody else told me, I was talking for 5 minutes, and somebody's like, what's an AI agent?
Exactly, because instead of taking it for granted, bring us up to speed with you.
Okay, so an AI agent it's basically it's like a small application that is doing something very specific. Mm-hmm. Okay, and this application, for example, is an AI agent that is built with, let's say, OpenAI as the large language model. And OpenAI, the latest version, these are these large language models that started off with, 5 million parameters, and then 20 million parameters, and then 100 billion. And now we're at the trillion.
A trillion, yeah.
A trillion parameters. And these parameters are all these data points that it's training itself on. So when you say, hey, write me a professional email to my landlord or my bank, then it has all that data and it generates the information. Mm-hmm. Now, when you're talking about generate some content ideas, you can prompt it. So they have they merge in what they call prompt engineers, or they're engineering a prompt, instructions basically, to the large language model to give it context. When you're trained on a 800 billion parameters or whatever it is, we have to sort of narrow it down a little bit, right? I am a creative designer. I need these specific ideas to generate, a logo or branding for this type of project. So when you give it instructions, you're prompting it, and it's generating the output that is more relevant to just entering some very basic,
to your
very,
specific case, right?
yeah, to our specific, what
Okay.
are Jaguars about? So, are we talking about the car, or are we talking about the animal? We use that as a basic example. So, for an AI agent, you're training it on your brand. In our case, so we're training an AI agent that knows our vision, our mission, our purpose, our culture. So you have this AI agent. So when we said, hey, people are going to start building all kinds of AI agents, right? And there is, so what we did is we actually built a platform to, number one, centralize our brand assets, including the logo, the fonts, and all that brand details. And because we want to build brand trained AI agent based on the brand information. I mean, everyone has their vision and purpose, but it's, it's not updated. It's not, the one on the website is not the same that we have. So the idea is that this is your sort of single source of truth, is to centralize it with this one platform. So when you build other agents, when we have, for example, when we've centralized the brand information, we have one AI agent, we call her Agent Bloom, this AI agent is trained on our brand, or on your brand, on the specific brand. And once you have that one trained AI agent, we see the other, the future of other AI agents that people are going to want to train. Okay, so it's not just about, so going back, if we can edit that part out. let me rephrase that.
Don't worry, we're cool. But let me restate that and correct me if I veered off a little. So you said Agent Bloom is a platform that helps a digital agency that has 10, 20, 30 accounts or brands that this agency is managing. Agent Blooms helps that agency when developing assets, digital assets or whatever, for every brand to stay on brand. Jaguars with the Jaguars and so on, right?
Exactly. So when we looked at all these tools, we said, hey, we're going to have all these different tools, and people are going to want to build and use all these different tools. But the reality is you have to keep constantly re-entering your brand information to properly train the tools to conduct, to output what you want it to output. For example, when you go back and you look, okay, now the potentials with an AI agent to build your brand content. The other potential is your HR, your human resources. It's not just about branding. It's about your human resources. The idea of having to click, and request a day off or submit your vacation request or so on. Those days are going to be over very soon. It's going to be talking to an HR AI agent. Hey, I need next week off. I'm taking 3 days off. Okay, which 3 days? And so that's going to be corresponding with the HR AI agent. Now, the HR AI agent is going to be trained on your HR policies, is going to have access to your, your vacation leave system. So it will be able to, reply back with the accurate information. So, okay, you have 2 days unpaid and 1 day paid.
I like. So, question: can we continue our conversation with the case of Agent Bloom?
Yes.
Do you mind?
No, absolutely. Yeah. So in a marketing department, you have all kinds of different departments, sub-departments. You have your marketing, your advertising, your sales, your community management. So the idea is that, one agent can't do everything, right? Because you want to train it specifically. I mean, we're getting to the point where they're doing more and more, but at the same time, the reality is at this point in time, we want to have one agent that's trained on your brand. And another agent maybe for sales or for specifically for strategy or specifically for Instagram that is trained on Instagram or Facebook channel. So for example, when you ask, what we've set up where you ask Agent Bloom, I want to run an Instagram campaign. Now Agent Bloom is trained on your brand, but not necessarily on Instagram specifically for your brand. So this is what they call a multi-agent system, or an agentic solution where you have sort of different agents communicating with each other to give you the best results. So then what we do is we can create a sales agent or a marketing agent or an Instagram agent or a community management agent that is trained specifically on or connected to specific, let's say, databases that your company has to be able to produce the best results. Now, Agent Bloom, what they use in the AI, they have a term called guardrails. So you want to make sure that the other agents are following the brand guidelines. So she's the brand custodian to ensure that the other brands are adhering to your guidelines.
So a company, let's say a digital agency, can have several agents that makes a multi-agent system.
Correct.
Agent Bloom is the custodian of the brands that this digital agency is in charge of, right?
Correct.
So, and you have already, if we focus a little bit on Agent Bloom, if you will.
Okay.
Is that okay if we focus on Agent Bloom?
It's a platform called ProjectBloom.
Okay.
And Agent Bloom is the agent, is your brand, your chief of staff. So we know, like, when we started on this journey, we said, okay, let's create a sales agent. Let's call him Agent Born. Let's create a community management agent, call him Agent Bond. So we follow the spy craft. So we have this command. So Project Bloom, you have a command center, and for your marketing team. But then we realized, like, okay, but then we need an agent for this. We need an agent for sales. We need for policies. We need all these different agents. And the reality is, according to all these different studies and reality, is that you cannot manage 50 agents or 60 agents. So our mission really is to create Agent Bloom as your chief of staff, and she is connected to your other agents.
Question now: we know what it is, right? It's a multi-agent system. Agent Bloom is the chief of staff of ProjectBloom. You know what I'm really interested in, and I think what the viewers and listeners would be interested in are the challenges. I mean, it can't be all rosy like this. I mean, it can't be just you got here so easily, right? Even with all your 30 years of experience in developing and what have you. So what keeps you up? Tell us more about your setup. And what are the biggest challenges? Yeah.
Oh man, we have a lot of challenges. I think the biggest challenge.
Away.
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge is, especially when you go back in time, we're not where we are in the late 90s or early 2000s. In the late 90s, you had the 100 million, 50 million, 100 million people online working in the industry. Now you have over 1 billion people working in the industry, what it seems like. And so things are moving at light speed. I mean, they're literally moving at light speed. We developed something really cool for the fashion industry. And literally, like, every week after we developed it, there's a new language model that came out that could have done a little bit better job. They could have done a little bit better job. They could have done. So, 4 weeks later, we're like, oh man, we could have done a better job. But the reality is, at the time, we did the best job we thought was possible with what was available. So it's not like, hey, there is a new language model and it's coming out in a couple of, in 3 months release cycle. I mean, this is coming out on a weekly basis. So when you start following the different news, it becomes truly overwhelming. And you're like, oh my God, I feel like we're obsolete already. And that's part of the mission of what we wanted to do, is build a platform that sort of scales with your AI vision. So you don't have to, like, okay, you sign up for ProjectBloom today, but 6 months later, something much better. The idea behind what we wanted to do is be able to give access to other large language models. Right now, we're supported on the back end by OpenAI, and OpenAI has their different versions because, with $100 billion, they're always going to be pushing the envelope. We saw something very probably something we've never seen before in business, where there was the release of DeepSeek, and that was a wild weekend. And so you have a company called DeepSeek, which is a competitor to OpenAI. And all of a sudden, this company announces that they have launched this large language model. It's competing with OpenAI, and they spent $8 million or even less, and they did it part-time. And so all of a sudden, they completely leveled the playing field. And that makes everybody say, oh man, we really have to work harder and harder and push earlier and earlier release cycles.
So how did you feel that how did you feel that weekend when DeepSeek was announced, and how did it really affect you as a platform that is supposedly LLM independent or LLM
independent, agnostic. So
agnostic.
We have, so the idea is that our platform, right now we are only tied to one solution, but we have in our roadmap to be able to switch out models. And that was always in our roadmap because we knew, like many things in industry, it becomes commoditized. And with the acceleration of technology, it's really becoming commoditized. We're getting closer to leveling the playing field. And so with OpenAI, they were a leader for sure when they released 2.0, 3.0, even 2.0, but 3.0. And they had that dominance, and they probably had a very long release cycle, maybe every few months. And then they had to shorten that because they had to maintain dominance. But now Google has also pushed out very important updates. There's Claude, there's Mistral, there's DeepSeek. I mean, there's more and more. And what's crazy about it is that some of them are even becoming open source, truly open source. OpenAI is not really open, but there are large language models that you can actually download. So, for example, you download a small large language model and you can run it on your computer if you're concerned about security and so on. Because sometimes there was a story about, I think, Samsung, they used OpenAI or maybe a similar platform, and they were feeding it and building their marketing presentation for a product that was not released. And so I guess OpenAI was training its data on what people are inputting it. You're constantly inputting. And so that it got leaked before it actually went out into the public. So security is one of the biggest things now and privacy that you have to watch out.
Can I take you back to your first challenge, which was the speed of release of those giants, the Claudes, the Metas, the Google Now, the OpenAI, and so on. A platform like yours, tell me more, because that was the number one issue.
So, it becomes overwhelming. You're like, oh my God, this is like a sprint at light speed. How are we gonna compete? How are we gonna keep up? But the reality is, if we build our system to be agnostic, and maybe at the end there is one dominant player that you only need really one language model. But at this time, when you're talking about image generation, you're talking about video generation, editing, we are using multiple models to create the best output. We have an AI fashion model, and we use 3 different models to get the best output. Maybe down the road, maybe in a year or 2 or 3, you'll have just one model. For us, I wouldn't personally invest in building a large language model. I mean, this is where you need truly the AI engineers to build the system to generate better results than the guy that launched the system yesterday. So that is a heavy investment from an engineering perspective. So what we did, this is why we wanted to sort of bulletproof our platform in the sense that, hey, we can support on the back end, but still we can support whatever model, large language model on the back end, or multiple large language models on the back end. And that brings us to the idea of having your command center, where you still need, doesn't matter which large language model you have, you still need to input it and train the large language model specifically on your brand. And that is already, forget AI, that's already a challenge that people have. They haven't really properly centralized their data, or it's maybe fragmented, or they have and they haven't. But you still have to feed the large language model and build your AI agent on whatever model you want, the information about who you are and what, whether you're a solopreneur, an entrepreneur, or a business owner, or a creative director, or whatever the position that you have, a community manager.
So you, as a platform developer, have a concern about the changing or the multiple competing LLMs out there, the giants out there, and somehow you need to cater for as many as possible in the interim until maybe one wins over, and it'll be the standard. Assuming this is the case.
I think we're probably, if you asked me this about 3 months ago, I'd tell you we're probably about 2 or 3 years away. Now, if you ask me, I'd probably say you're probably about less than 2 years, 1 year to 2 years away.
And you think one will win over?
I think within probably there's so much money going into it, and they're probably using AI to build to expand their own models and so on, and the processing is becoming more efficient. If you go back and you look at certain research papers, how did we get to where we are today? It's kind of a funny story, is that Google actually published this very interesting paper on transformers that model that led to OpenAI, version 1.0. So they took out this Google's idea and tried to build this thing, and it kind of worked. And then they built version 2 with more data points, and now version 3. And now we have 4.0 and 3 mini and all that. But if you go back and you look at the research papers, you can see now it's becoming even more and more efficient, where you need less and less processing power. Although processing power is becoming more and more powerful, that's why NVIDIA is so popular. If people want to know, is that NVIDIA is like leading the chip race, the computer chips that does all that processing and training for all these large language models. And it requires a massive amount of energy, massive amount of processing power. And because we have these connected networks, this is why we ended up where we are today. It's because of the processing power, the connected networks, and the information that we've all been feeding. I'll tell you something. In our agency, one of our clients, we gave them a very nice content calendar the team developed, and they're like, oh, yeah, but you used OpenAI. You used ChatGPT to build that. We're like, no, we didn't, actually. And he's like, yeah, and he fed the information that we built, and it outputted that a lot of it was developed from AI. But and it actually wasn't. Why and how do we know? Because the reality is, the OpenAI and the other language models, they're already trained on all the content that we have been feeding the internet. It's all public information, so they've been sucking that information down and training these large language models. So now you go and you tell, hey, is this built with AI? And a lot of times it says yes. So what we did is we took our old information that we published, years ago, fed it in before ChatGPT or anything, fed it into the system and the program and said, hey, is this built with AI? And it said yes. So good. So it's very interesting. So going back to your question about the speed.
And why is it a concern and that angle?
No, it's definitely a concern because it's just overwhelming what and fascinating what is happening in the industry, and and people really are developing like, hey, you have an output that like, hey, wow, that's great. And then somebody else, there's a new platform that comes out tomorrow, and then like, wow, how come you guys are, you guys aren't as good as these guys? Well, okay, but we just released. So our idea is, and it takes a lot of time and energy to go through and understand the different outputs from the different large language models. And so, we're spending our time doing that and following certain people online, running our own experiments across different platforms. We have a team of 14 designers. So we're part of the Adobe ecosystem. And they have a lot. Adobe is a multi-billion-dollar company. We've tested out their Firefly and their solutions, and they were very subpar when they were released. Now they're getting a little bit better, and they have the money and they have the engineering resources. They're getting better, but still today you have these smaller outfits that are competing and even destroying them. But Adobe
so you as a smaller outfit, I'm trying to get to the gist of it. What keeps you up? Many LLMs out there. I understand what keeps you up is how many to plug in, and do you have the resources to analyze every single one and every single version of one to plug it in? And the question is, do you have to have many to stay competitive?
Yeah, in some cases, I don't think you need. A majority of people won't need different large language models. When you're going into video generation, you're going into image generation, then it becomes a little bit trickier. Or you're going into there are large language models where you can program your lip sync, and some of them aren't that great yet. So we're not there yet with those. So when you want to piece all that together, then right now you do need different models, and so many are evolving and coming out and updating and so on. So we need what we need to do is build an AI agent that does the research for us.
So that you can keep up with the changes.
So we can keep up with the changes. But what we've been investigating now and researching and working with is something what they call routing your large language model. So you're not having to go directly to the large language model. And this is becoming more and more popular, where you have, there's some open source tools that we've been testing. One of them is Route LLM. So what you do is when you're prompting the agent then goes, according to the prompt, then goes and decides which is the best large language model to use. Now, this is where we're heading. So in the back end, you don't are using Gemini 2.5, using O3 Mini, or maybe O4, or using Claude. At the end, the end user it's overwhelming for the end user. So it can get overwhelming for us, but for the end user, it's even more overwhelming.
So I see one challenge is the dynamic nature of your LLM supporters. That's one. Another challenge I heard in your case is how can actual brands collect their assets and feed these agents so that they can give you the right answer. That's another one.
Yeah.
And are you seeing this as a challenge in your business? I mean, with your clients, is this one of the challenges? And yes. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, if you have one brand, so we built ProjectBloom to be a multi-brand solution and to work with teams. And so you have your brand manager or your account manager or your community manager. They're working sometimes on multiple brands. So a lot of the platforms out there, it's good if you have one brand. It's a little bit convoluted if you have more than one or two or three. So we built it to be as friendly as possible for multi-brand portfolio companies or digital agencies. And so, sorry, what was the question? I lost. What was the question?
The question was, the challenge is to collect the assets to feed.
Yeah. So when you're adding when you're adding one brand, when you're saying staying up late at night. I was up pretty late last night. I woke up early. So when you have a platform and you're feeding it just one brand, it's not really a big deal. But when you have 20 brands or 20 brands or 30 brands or 100 brands, then it becomes a daunting task. Whose job is it to onboard all these brands into the platform, to centralize the data? Now, what we're working on now is a AI agent for onboarding. So the idea is you tell Agent Bloom, hey, Agent Bloom, I need to onboard this brand. brand A, brand B, brand. So it will go out and you feed it maybe 1 or 2 points like the website. And then it will go and actually populate all the data, the vision, the mission. It'll pull the logo and so on. But that works to get started. But you need to upload a proper SVG. You have to go through it. But the idea is that still reduce the labor by 80%. And at the same time, we have a team. We're about 60 people here, and we're supporting brands and helping them just centralize their assets onto the platform.
That's very interesting. So one challenge on the client side, the other challenge on the, let's say, the supplier side, the LLMs, the engines. Another challenge that's really painful from a business point of view.
From a business point of view, the reality is you can centralize your information, but but you can only centralize part of it. You're still going to be using these 10 or 20 or 100 different tools. So the first part is, let's at least start with the foundation, your command center. And, the proper command center should also be able to connect to your other systems. So what we've done is we've actually included an iPaaS, which is called an integration platform as a service. Because the reality is sometimes you have older systems that you need to connect to. Maybe you need to connect to your accounting system. Maybe you need to connect to, Facebook and Google and maybe HubSpot or, these other tools that you're using for your marketing department. If you have a custom planner for media, you need to connect to. We have a planner in ProjectBloom, but maybe you don't want to use it. You already have one that you're happy with. So the idea is that we have that flexibility where we can do an easy integration into these different platforms. And it's a heavy lift to do integrations, but with an iPaaS solution, they've gotten better and better. And now we're able to integrate into 1,000 different solutions with already pre-built connectors. So that accelerates that connection.
That's nice. And that comes very, very useful to the platform and to your eventual clients.
Exactly.
What's the biggest threat to ProjectBloom or Agent Bloom when you say, oops, I hope this doesn't happen?
Honestly, when we're dealing with these large language models, there is a certain, it's sort of a little bit of an untamed beast. So, there are different things you can add in there. So we're still sort of taming this beast. There's the, temperature, there are these different parameters that help you stick to your brand. So the biggest threat, and I don't want to publish this, but and it's going to get better and better for sure, is that we're, especially when working with new models, is that these are huge beasts that you have to train and tame. And so, and when you're dealing with brands, you want to be very sensitive, that you're always on brand. You want to see the content going out is staying on brand. You have a community manager, you want to make sure that it stays on brand, or he or she stays on brand. And so this is the scary part, is that we are these large language models, they are becoming more and more powerful, that they're sort of taking over on many levels. So, and it's not to scare anybody, but it's getting better.
It's getting better, meaning it's becoming less beastie, or you're becoming a better trainer of the beast.
Very good question. Yeah, it's both actually. It's like we're going back to prompt engineering. This was the discussion earlier, that this is, when you start analyzing the prompts and being able to quantify what the output is and measure the results. We had a client where we used different types of prompts to translate information. And when you're translating, how accurate do you have to be? Are you translating or are you rewriting? Are you rewriting or are you rephrasing? So it's very interesting. So we ran and we do all these experiments just to better ourselves and to understand, and also to provide the best solution for the client. So we ran these different models that say, hey, we need to translate this text from English to Arabic, and we had large amount of text. So we did it manually because we're a trilingual agency. So we're based in the Middle East. We have a big team in Lebanon. So we're English, Arabic, and French. And so this is the Mediterranean behind us. So we did it manually, and the results were great because we had somebody that is a native Arabic speaker, and they were able to translate English to Arabic. And then we did it, but it took time. There was a large amount of data, and this was a startup that that is one of our clients. And so we're like, okay, if we're going to do all of the data, it's going to cost them too much money. So how can we use AI? And so we ran this experiment that says, do we want to rephrase? Do we want to translate? Or do we want to rewrite? And so we picked those three different prompts, worked with them a little bit, and then we sort of quantified them that says, hey, this, and then we went through manually. And then we were able to say that, hey, rephrasing was the best solution because it was 98% accurate versus translating, which was only about 85% accurate. And again, it depends. Are you doing a legal document? Are you doing, are you just doing some trivia questions? It depends on what you're actually doing.
Our time is wrapping up. So if I may, let's take us back to the beginning when you gave the background, your personal background and I've seen history from 1990 something, 95, let's say, till today, pre-bubble. Several technologies have shifted over time. And then we spent quite a bit of time on AI and the dynamic nature of how AI is developing. And if something took a year to be released a decade ago, now it's taking a week or two or a month at most.
Exactly.
And then we spoke about the platform, ProjectBloom, and how it helps digital agencies or corporations who deal with several brands to hopefully make their life easier. They can get things done faster and more on brand, more true to their individual brand. And of course, you said quite a bit. You spoke quite a bit about the technologies. Every now and then we spoke about those. Those were fun and learning experience. Now the question for you, since it's very, very fast. I'm not going to say what happens in 3 years. I'm going to say, in your opinion, as a wrap up, how do you see, what is the ideal situation or for what you're working with for agencies with multiple brands by end of 2025?
Okay. So we're at a very critical point right now because, when we set out, we created an internal research team over 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, based on our experience, what we've done with AI, and said, okay, what is out there and what should we do? How should we build? What should we build? Because we should build something. This thing is revolutionary. So the reality is, when we set this out, there's a personal threat. If you are a copywriter, and I'm asking you, how can you leverage ChatGPT to write content? Then you start realizing, okay, if ChatGPT is going to write the content, what am I going to do? And I think we've been seeing that over the last couple of years, is this threat that I'm going to be obsolete. Okay, now I think that is shifting now. We see that now with fashion models. There's a threat that now there was a threat that fashion models are going to disappear because now H&M, now the big boys are coming in, right? H&M is like, hey, we're creating these digital twins of our fashion models. So they're taking sort of that hybrid approach where they're not doing AI fashion models. They're doing a little softer approach. They're taking that, hey, we're going to do digital twins. And a digital twin is an actual person, and they're creating that AI version of that person. So then they can create that AI version. They can do a virtual try-on, have, let's say, 300 outfits on them, and it takes them, 1 day or 1 hour of processing time. And no studio, no background. You don't have to, if you want to do a photo shoot, you don't need to rent a place or scout out a place. You don't need makeup artists because you have that digital twin and you have AI that says, hey, apply this type of makeup, put this type of background, make the model in Paris or make the model riding a scooter or whatever it is. So that digital twin is sort of that hybrid, that first step approach. Now that you have these digital twins being built, this is sort of the step that is moving now the rest of the industry to say, okay, I guess it's okay now to start exploring AI and using AI fashion models. Now we've done a pitch, I mentioned a little bit earlier, for a clothing company, actually lingerie, which is very difficult to do. It's more intricate detail, where people couldn't tell the difference. And I was showing a friend of mine this, I was showing him, hey, look what I did for this company, I meaning the team. So look what the team did for this company, and they put together a very nice presentation, and they had an AI fashion model, and she was turning around, she was waving, and my friend said, oh wow, she's really nice looking, it's really nice. I'm like, she's an AI fashion model, and he's like, what? She's not real? I'm like, no. He's like, this is not a real person. I'm like, no. He couldn't tell the difference. So if he can't tell the difference, and many people cannot tell the difference, then all of a sudden you have this massive adoption that is going to happen inevitably, because you have massive reduction in costs, and businesses are always looking to stay competitive, and they have to cut costs. And now that the big boys are starting to come into it, like H&M and some of the other companies, now it's okay. Maybe it's okay. They kind of set the groundwork that says, wow, look what they're doing. How can I do that? So where do I see? Yeah. So now I see that. Yeah. Sorry. So where do I see it now in 2025 is that, and then again, like, the other thing he said, and his wife is into photography. She hires models. She's into that very business. And he's like, man, industries are going to collapse. And he's like, he was kind of concerned because his wife is going to be out of a job. But there are two realities. The first reality is it takes time for people to transform. And even though the technology is here today, it's going to take several years, right? That's for one. The other thing is you have a whole new industry that is going to erupt. And according to one research study, we are at the $2 to $3 billion range for a AI fashion revolution. And that industry is supposed to grow to $60 billion. Now, the makeup artists are going to lose their job, for sure, many of them. The actual model, they're going to lose their jobs for sure. There will be people losing their jobs. But the reality is there's a whole new industry that is going to explode. And this in 10 years supposed to be $60 billion market. And we're only at the $2-3 billion value right now. And so it's going to, and what it's doing, what AI is doing, is leveling the playing field. If you're an independent designer, maybe you're up and coming, or you're just getting started, you can have a supermodel or a regular model as an AI agent. Maybe you cannot afford to hire a model. So now all the smaller and mid-sized companies will be able to do more photo shoots, or maybe be able to do photo shoots, because it can get costly, $10,000 to $50,000, maybe $100,000 to do a photo shoot. And now you don't need to spend that. You can save 80% of that. Now for $2,000-$3,000, you have a fashion model, you have catalog models, you have them where you want them, and reflecting your brand.
Do you mind if we extend a little bit longer? Because I think that's a that's a parallel use case to AI. One was for digital agencies. This one is AI and modeling,
Fashion.
right?
Yeah.
For the fashion,
Yeah.
AI and fashion. And what I hear you saying, this is disruptive, big time, because
Yes.
the classical professionals who worked in producing those digital assets, whether they're the photo shoots, whatever it is, right, are
Are
have
at
to
risk.
change, are at risk.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Second, what you're saying is, yes, the big guns, the big boys, the big girls are starting to play in that field, and this is going to grow from 2 to 3 billion industry into a 60 billion industry. Is it similar to what Uber did to the taxis, what iTunes did to the music, where it flattened?
Absolutely.
Same?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and these are projections for the next 10 years, but the reality is in the next 5 years, you're going to see massive disruption. And when you look at one study said that even e-commerce models, the catalog models for e-commerce and so on, you're going to see probably 60 to 80% drop or unemployment in that area for sure, because there's massive cost savings and more and higher accuracy. Now we've had this opportunity, let's say before, but it was very gimmicky. It was inaccurate. You're selling a garment, you're going to end up with a lot of returns because it doesn't represent if it's all AI generated and so on. Mm-hmm. But now you're taking the actual garment and you're putting out an AI fashion model, and it's giving you, what was maybe 80% a year ago to 85% 6 months ago to maybe 95% accuracy today. So that's only getting better and better and better. And so you're going to see a massive disruption in the e-commerce and catalog model. So 50 to 80% drop. And it's not in 10 years. This is going to be over the next 5 years.
What you're saying?
The same thing for, if you're doing retouching or you're doing makeup or photography, it's the same thing in photography. You're going to have 50% drop in photography. And this is not in the, in 10 years, 2035, okay, it seems so far away, but when you've been around long enough, 10 years will flash by, but we're not talking about 10 years. We're talking over the next 5 years.
5 years if they're slow.
Yeah, and people will take time to adopt, but this is a new industry that expected to grow 39% compounded growth, and that's massive. So,
where do you come in? You come in with a new solution, right?
Yeah. So right now we're building. We have a few clients, and they're pioneering with us, and we're actually building their catalog models for their e-commerce. And we're also building. One of them is exploring the idea of having a sort of a spokesperson, an ambassador that is AI powered. Now, and we have other people that we're talking to that are interested as well. The one thing for ProjectBloom is that when the most amazing way to demonstrate AI is visual, and when you can see an AI fashion model, it's one thing when you're generating text and for an email, but when you see an AI fashion model that is turning around, wearing your clothes. If it's a male model, then it's, and he's, let's say, I don't know, sitting by the fire with drinking hot cocoa, whatever background scene that you want. And it can be done within days or minutes instead of like weeks of planning and resource. We have one client that we broke down, and they spend about 20 days a year, 20 days from the owner's side of planning, scouting, coordinating. That's a lot of time for an owner to invest, and it's a huge pillar of any fashion business. It's the imagery. So when we demoed something that we can do with their clothing, they're like, they were in shock. They were I think for about 2 weeks, and now they're going to be coming on board. They're like, oh my god. They're like, is this real?
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
So you're on the upswing of this. What would be
Yeah,
your challenges if I may? Because it sounds easy, right? It sounds easy. You're the tech guy, you're the AI
yeah,
person, you have the system, you know how to create agents.
yeah. Yeah, it's very easy. Now, I mean, it's easy to do many things, but at the end of the day, it's how accurate you can get it, how on brand you can have it, and how, and consistency has been the biggest challenge. We tried over a year ago and we weren't successful. We tried 6 months ago and we feel like it still wasn't there. When we tried a month ago or 2 months ago, we're like, oh man, it's really improved, and we are there. We can do it.
What has improved? The LLM
The
itself?
the large language models, to be able to create that realistic transformation of the clothing to an AI generated person. So that has really improved.
I got excited about this. So what you're doing is you waited until it matured enough, and you've been trying from this side to generate realistic models wearing the products, the outfits of that one brand, and you showed it to the client, and the client looked, wow, but you waited that long for it. So you're saying now you're ready.
Now we are ready, like mentally and emotionally. And I think our clients are now ready, especially when we mentioned the large companies coming in. I mean, we could have done it over a year ago, and that's what you're talking about. Fear is that we probably should have done it a year ago, even though it wasn't that accurate. But when you start seeing a lot of these tools, they start marketing way before that they're actually ready. But when you're talking about being consistent and holding a certain level of standard, you want to make sure that you are delivering on point and on brand for the clients. It just makes things a lot easier. And so if we started selling the solution a year ago, it still wouldn't be that it would have been that good. It would have been that accurate. And the client's like, okay, especially when you're dealing with e-commerce and clothing, you're going to end up with a return rate, and you're going to end up actually maybe costing you. And clothing has a very high return rate. I think Amazon published something that like a 25% return rate on clothing. So, and this is the idea, is like, you can also upload pictures of yourself, get virtual try-ons, and be able to see what does the outfit look like on myself. Now, what we're doing is we're working one-on-one with our clients to build out these models, but then we want to be able to empower other agencies with the tools to make it easier for them. Some of the smaller agencies, maybe they don't have the time, they don't have the resources, they're unable to invest. And it's a heavy investment to do and to follow. Maybe they don't have the resource, but we want to give them the tools so they can go into ProjectBloom and they can upload or maybe connect to their Shopify or WordPress account, or connect their clients' information and be able to work it from there. When you're going back to that beast of the large language models and so on, that's when you're talking about multi-agent, we want to be able to empower our customers or the other marketing teams and agencies to be able to manipulate and train and control the output as much as possible from there.
So the fashion AI agent is one of ProjectBloom's agents, can be one of ProjectBloom's
Exactly. Right now, we're calling it like sort of an enterprise solution because it's being supported by the agency, our branding agency. But in reality, it's we'll be integrating as a feature in the coming months.
So in hindsight, would you have launched the fashion agent a year back, even though it was 80-70% accurate? Or
probably
you
may have been easier.
you sighed. Easier in what sense?
I think it's an easier sell. I send a video to somebody of this AI ambassador that we created, and right away you see the value proposition immediately, within seconds. Like I give this demo to my friend, and right away you see the value proposition. So if you're in that business and you're like, I need to cut back, because there are the scouting agencies, the modeling agencies, we use AI models and modeling agencies, but the modeling agencies, the ones that represent the different fashion models and catalog models, they're being squeezed on margins. They're being squeezed from all angles. And so,
Right.
everyone's looking to reduce costs. So in 5 seconds, you can see where the value is. When you're building other AI agents, maybe you cannot see the value, or it takes longer to digest and process what the potential value is. But with a AI fashion model, for sure.
It's easy. And you would have, so that I understand correctly, you would have launched a year ago, even though it wasn't as accurate as today, if you had the choice.
No, I mean, I say that in passing, but in reality, you still have to centralize your brand assets, and that should be the starting point for building any AI agent, and that's sort of the crux. That's the command center. You want to build this agent or that agent, community manager agent, a strategy agent. You still need to have a starting point, a launch pad, and the command center. So this is the starting point, I think, for any AI strategy, is to have a platform that is flexible, that can stay with you, and that you're not stuck having to jump between different platforms all the time, because that can get costly in itself. Leave that up to us, and hopefully we'll be adding the latest models.
Ziad, thank you very, very much for joining me today. Wish you all the best.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm very excited about your podcast, and I'm looking forward to continuing following it.
Yeah. We'll make sure, hopefully, that add people, agencies. It's been a very interesting and learning experience. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tony.